Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Pastor Cecil. I get to pastor one church in Elmont, Long Island in New York, and I'm honored to be with two of my good friends in life, but also in ministry. And we're gonna have just a real and open conversation, honest conversation on the topic of being stronger together. If you've been connecting with this channel and the conversation that happened in the earlier episode, the conversation was really geared towards just introducing this podcast, but we want to continue to dig deeper and go further in our honest, real, raw conversations and address some real and relevant topics that is affecting our churches, our lives, and our community at large. So first off, I just want to give you an opportunity to see and hear from two of my good friends. And to my right is Pastor Davis Abraham. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Davis Abraham. I am the youth pastor at Atlanta Church of God. I've been serving in that role for about 2.5 years. I've known Pastor C for many years. We've ministered together back in New York. So it's good to be here. And I've obviously got to know Pastor Georgy over the past couple of years. So looking forward to today's conversation.
Awesome. And like Pastor Davis mentioned, Pastor Georgy is joining us for this conversation. I've had a wonderful opportunity to learn, live, and grow with him in ministry and in life over the past 5 or 6 years, and glad to have him as part of this conversation. So, Pastor Georgy, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're at.
Hey everyone, I'm Georgy. Recently just moved back to Dallas. Like Pastor C said, we were serving alongside each other in New York. I was serving on staff as a worship pastor, and then my wife and I decided to move back to Texas, and we're just attending church now, and good to see both Davis and Pastor C together as we've been connecting over the last 1 hour since they landed. But we were just I'm excited. They literally just told me to jump on, and I was like, all right, I'll help you guys out and see where the conversation goes. So just excited just alongside with them. So, yeah.
This is going to be good.
Yes, it is. Guys, I just wanted to, like I shared, just the idea of stronger together. We may focus a lot of our conversation around church and leadership and ministry, but if we can also connect it to all of us are married, we are raising families and in different stages of life as well. And if we could even dig deeper into those, we'll see how the conversation goes. But first, I'll just maybe throw it to Davis first. Like, you've grown up in the church. We all have grown up in the church, and I was a pastor's kid, and you've all been around ministry all your lives, involved in very different but intentional ways. What does a strong church look like?
I would say, in my opinion, a strong church is one that serves the entire body. They may have various ministries, various population groups that they're serving, but it should serve everyone, right? I don't think a church should only be focused on one demographic, one ethnic group, or even one age level, right? Serving everyone, meeting their needs, and might be in different ways based on where they are. And by having that, you create a stronger body, the body of Christ.
I think kind of piggybacking off that same concept of having one body going in the same direction. I think recently I just had a conversation actually with one of my good friends about the vision of a church. I feel like you could have a 50-person church or a 1,000-person church, but if there's no vision, the strength of that church won't matter. I believe a church that has 50 people can be just as strong and effective as a church that has 1,000 people, as long as they have vision and every single person is in agreement with that vision. Yeah.
So I'm going through this as pastoring and leading a church. There's the tension of you want to see the church grow, but then you also see the realities of pastors that leading larger churches, growing churches, and you hear from the people, the congregation, and the struggles of a larger, I don't want to say mega church, but like for that, just so we have a picture, how do we see a growing church, whether it's 50 to 1,000, and then there's like, oh man, how do we keep this feeling small and still feeling strong and united along the way?
I think at the end of the day, no matter if you're in if it's a small church or a small company, small group of friends, large group of friends, it comes down to its basic level, just building relationships, right? Clearly, at a church that has 1,000 people, you're not going to have relationships with everyone. You may know who people are, you may see them in different capacities, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you have built some strong relationships with individuals because you are doing life together in church, right? You're going through your struggles, you're going through your mountain highs and your valley lows, and these are the individuals that should walk this journey with you, right? It's not just simply, or shouldn't be just simply a Sunday hi bye, but it should be someone who can say, I got you when you're going through a tough time, or hey, can I come and lean on you a little bit when I'm going through a tough time? So at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. I think that's what strengthens a church and makes church strong.
Talk to someone that's like trying to find, or even maybe you've experienced this, like finding a church, a new church. You both have recently moved to new cities, right, in recent years and months, and I've not have that to go through that yet. Like, how do you find a church, and then also, regardless of size, finding a community within that? I want to say congregate. There's a church, there's a congregation, then there's a community. How do you find that? Like, how intentional do you have to be for that?
Actually, speaking of starting to go to a church for the first time, I've had to acclimate to a new church twice in the last 6 years. So the first time was when I stepped on staff with one church and had to literally push a reset button and reconfigure the way I think, talked, walked, everything that I would normally do, reset that whole perspective and mindset of how to approach church from a staff perspective. And then in the last 6 months, completely starting again from scratch and trying to find a new church again, but from the attending side of it, and trying to acclimate again to a new church. And for someone that's looking for that new church, I kind of want to like draw a parallel with secular life. I had to recently start a new job, and naturally, we don't know anyone. We're coming like, hey, how am I going to work alongside this person? How am I going to communicate with this new boss or this new employee or coworker? And you can approach it from a perspective, hey, I'm going to come in, do my thing, and get out of here, or come in and hey, I'm going to invest my time, my effort. I want to see this workplace grow. And I've had to do that in the last 6 months. Like, I don't know anybody, the whole environment's brand new, but I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try my best to make sure I connect with my coworkers and my supervisor and make sure that we're reaching our goals, right? Same way in the church, when you're looking for a new church or you're seeking for that new community, what's your end goal? Just to say, hey, all right, I found a church, I'm good with it, I'm done, I'm out, 12:30 p.m., let's go to lunch, or hey, I really wanna make sure I'm investing my time, finding community, making sure that, again, I agree with the vision of the church, and then only things can start really to snowball into, hey, this is where I feel home, this is where I can call my family.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. Having gone through this recently, about 2.5 years ago, Pastor C knows, I went to one church for like 37 years, literally one church. And then when our family decided to move, we had to go through the process of finding a new church, which was absolutely foreign. I didn't even know, like, what do you do? Do you call up pastors? Do you randomly show up? Do you need to make a reservation? Like, what is the process of doing that? And, when we moved down to Atlanta, we visited a few churches and just randomly showing up, attending, and just to get a feel and a vibe. And also at the end of the day, understanding like what is this church about? Where are they going? What do they want to do? And by doing that, we were able to sort of, echoing your point, does the vision of the church and what they want to do, does it align with what I want to do? Does it match up? Will I be able to work alongside this? One thing I tell people all the time when they're looking for a church, I say, make sure you find a church that is a blessing to you and that you can be a blessing to, right? Don't go there just to receive, and don't go there only to serve and not receive anything on the other side. It should be a balance. And I could surely say, having gone through that process, I feel really comfortable about where I am right now is the right place for us in this season of our life. And we feel connected and feel that more connected to where we are right now than maybe other places that we've been.
Wow. On the flip side, this whole conversation is about being real and raw. On the flip side, has anyone here ever felt like leaving your church?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially if you've been a part of any any organization, right? Like whether it's a workplace, a sports team, a friend circle, a church, whatever group it's going to be, it's natural. There's going to be times when you feel like, I feel disconnected, or maybe something doesn't jive as well. It was driving before, but it's not driving now. So that's going to happen, right? And I think mentally being prepared for like, hey, there might be a moment in time that happens. I think what we have to figure out is this simply a moment in time and it's a blip on your journey? Or is this really a cliff where you need to make a decision? Do I need to jump off and, this is the end of this journey and I need to start something new? I think very often it's easy to be like, you hit a bump and everything's over, right? You're like, this is it, it's over. And actuality is like, no, this is just a blip. It's okay. You can get through this. This little short period of time where it feels a little odd or awkward, it'll pass. And in other instances, you do need to make that sort of gut instinct of like, okay, now it's sort of the transition time has come. So I think anyone would be lying to themselves. They always said, like, oh no, I've been a part of something. I've never ever felt like I should move out or transition or step away.
How about you?
Again, I've had to move 3 times in the last 6 years. The first time was exactly what Pastor Jay was saying, like feeling disconnected from my home church. In that season, I was actually searching and seeking God to open up that pathway to find a place where, like you said, be blessed and also be a blessing too. In that season, it was when God called myself to New York through Pastor C, and got plugged in with that church, one church in New York, and whole different season. And then 6 years later, here again, I'm having to transition out, but from a completely different perspective of making sure I take care of family. It's more of like hey, one season of life is coming to a closure, new season of life needs to be addressed. And I think the only way you can answer that is that coming from a man-made decision-making process, a man-made thought of am I using my emotions to make decisions or even a pathway come to life, or is God really ordering my steps? And if God isn't ordering your steps, then you got to sit still and sit down.
I think that you just touched on something about the feelings and the emotions. And listen, whenever you're dealing with people, look at the family context, work, any context, now bring it to church. There's people involved. Yeah. People are flawed. We're all imperfect, flawed people, just covered in the grace of God. But whenever the emotions drive our decisions, emotions, I've read it or heard it somewhere, those feelings are going to be temporary, but those decisions are going to have long-lasting impact. So we have to be careful about making emotional decisions, but not negating our emotions or not negating what the Lord is giving us in terms of a sense of what He's doing and where He's leading us. But I think there has to be a careful consideration of, hey, just because a little struggle comes, or because it's a hard season right now, that season is literally a season. It's going to come and it's going to go. And there's going to be something good that comes out of it. There may be some changes that come out of it too, but I think not letting our emotions drive our long-term decisions is huge. And another observation I made, I'm just...
Hold on, before we go.
No.
So, I was gonna say, no, I mean, for you, being a part of a family church, right? Like your grandfather who started the church and your father, and now you're there. Have you experienced those moments where you're like, I don't know if I need to be here?
Oh, absolutely. I've had opportunities to go out on my own. People have approached me and I've entertained those opportunities. Without anyone approaching me, I've thought of just leaving on my own and doing my own thing. But I always felt like, I guess this will go into further our conversation also, is like, I personally felt like I wanted to be part of the change. I didn't want to leave or abandon, not just my church, and not just our community, but bring about the change that I guess the Lord gave that vision. Hey, 10, 15, 20 years down, this is 20 years ago now, like 20, 25 years down, the next generation comes, our church is going to look very different. And we're already seeing it, like, churches that started doing English services, or then started, like our church started doing community service and just reaching the literal neighborhood in which they're placed. You saw that it was tabooed 15 years ago, right? And we had to fight a lot of battles but God led and kept our church together. But there have been moments where like, hey, maybe it's time for us to go. Maybe this is not for us. But in those moments, either the Lord has closed his doors, or we just said it's not time, it's not for us. And even though there were some hard rejections, and I'm just going to be real, there were some hard no's that we didn't expect to get, and those rejections were really God protecting us. We didn't see it in the moment, but we saw it later on. And that's what I want to tell, like, don't let anything of self-drive, emotions or self-drive, because you're trying to escape something. Yeah. Hey, let me go find something else because I can't take it anymore.
I was just going to add, don't leave a church if you're frustrated. Yeah. Because the next church you go, the first response is you're going to get frustrated, you're going to leave again. Yeah. And that's just going to be a bad habit of church hopping at that point. I think, and I'm saying that because I went through that season of myself. I was frustrated, felt disconnected, and I was like, should I leave? But then I realized that there are alternatives. Like, hey, be consistent at where you're at, see where God can use you. If you need to go find a community or even another place of receiving midweek, go for it. But then until God, again, what I said earlier, until God orders your steps, says, hey, now is your time to step out. But I think the worst decision you can make is, I'm frustrated, I'm heading out, peace out. Then you go to the next church, you might end up hurting yourself more than you think.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Prior to this being a part of only one church ever, there were times when people would come to me and say, why are you here? Not necessarily from the church, like in other places, but like, oh, you should consider leaving. And I would always say, why? I would often say, I'm like, why? Why don't you leave? I'm like, this is where God wants me to be right now. They're like, oh, you can get opportunities in other places. You can do this, you can do that. I'm like, yeah, but God has planted me here right now. And even though it's not perfect, this is where I need to be. This is where I want to be a part of the change, right? It's so easy to be like, oh, I'm frustrated, I'm going to get up and leave. And also, especially for individuals who don't want to put in the work, don't want to grind it out, and don't want to say, okay, I will take the time and effort to be a part of the change, to get it to where we want it to be. It's easy to get up and do that. It's harder to say, you know what, I'm going to stay where you are, work through it, be a part of it, and get it to where it needs to be. I applaud people when they do that, right? Like, I'm like, wow, you had those opportunities and you decided to say, I'm going to put the effort in, I'm going to put the work in. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who just don't want to put the work or effort.
So an observation I made about, we're just having a conversation in our generation, right? We're not going to say our ages or anything, but in our generation, I noticed about 10 years ago, a lot of young people, single professional adults, there was an exodus in our church, from our churches, right? Maybe even now, there's probably an exodus. But then you see those same people come back, some things have changed. They're married and they have kids and they're back in the Indian church. And I told some people I could tell it back then, like, hey, what do you think is gonna happen to these people? Like, I could see some of them coming back. Then I see most of them come back. And do you guys see that first? And I have my own hypothesis or conclusion on why. And I've heard it from the people that did come back. Like, before I share that, have you heard that? Or why do you think they have come back?
I think at the end of the day, it's all about relationships and community. I think that, that is the one thing I've heard over and over again. It's like, they've gone to other churches, and not that there's anything wrong. If God calls you to go to a church, go. If that's what God is calling you to do it. But I've seen people who have gone, but they still feel disconnected, even though the church is bigger, has more resources, has more programs, has more people, whatever it may be. They still don't have the community that they are searching for. And that's what God wants, is for us to have relationship with each other, right? It's not necessarily just be a part of some large number, but build relationships, right? So I think that is the hardest thing for people to do, is if they are not able to build community, then they often will say, let me go back to the place I had community, right? And that's familiar, that makes sense to me.
Other side is actually something you just said a second ago, is I've heard also instances where someone might leave the church because they feel like they can't connect with anyone or even find community. And I've heard
from the cultural churches, meaning our South Indian churches?
Yeah, or even mixed churches. I've heard it, and then they find an exit and they're like, hey, I'm not able to connect with anybody. But the question that always came up was, what did you do to lead up to that point of trying to connect?
Right.
Was it you just coming to church and leaving immediately after? What was the ground, like you said, were you like grinding away, trying to make sure that you found your place, not just a seat, but your place in that church? Because if you're just finding a seat, most likely you will exit and you will fail.
I like that. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a message for next time.
Yeah, I know. For you next time, right? Yeah. So community is one big word I kept hearing from the people that went through it. Second was culture.
Yeah.
And this tension in my head, like, wait, you didn't like the culture 10 years ago. Why do you like it now? Or why do you need it now? Why did you run away from it then, but why do you need it now? It's just, I don't know if I'll ever get the answer to that. I'm just sharing what's in my head.
I think it's also maturity, right? Like you go through different seasons of your life where, what you know at a certain point of your life seems like, yep, this is everything I need to know. But then as you go through different ebbs and flows and different circumstances, you learn more. And you're like, you know what? Actually, what I do need is this, or right? So your perspective changes, right? So, someone who has once left Indian church, came back, I believe their perspective has changed, right? So you can't knock them for it, but at the same time, they're growing, which is good. You don't want someone to be stagnant. They're growing, they're understanding. And I know people who've been with Indian church for a long time, and then at a certain point, they leave. That's fine as well. As long as, once again, I think it's all about building those connections where you are.
And then the two crises I see, just to shift a little bit. There has been, or there is, an identity crisis in our church. And also, at some points, I don't want to say a crisis, but there is a leadership, I don't even vacuum or leadership absence of strong leadership. And when there's the absence of strong leadership, then you see the conflicts that rise up within the church. How do you guys, what have you guys experienced? How do you guys, how would you advise other pastors, maybe you've gone through some experiences that you can share, or without getting into the nitty-gritty details, or maybe we want to get into the nitty-gritty, but whatever the Lord kind of puts on your heart, like, how would you handle those moments of the identity? Let's look at the identity crisis. Coming back to vision, like, how does a church get to that clarity of, hey, this is who we are and this is who we're reaching?
That's a loaded question. There's a lot to unpack there.
I'm trying to help people.
I'm trying to think, it's sort of hard. I think people need to first realize who they are, right? Have the understanding of their own identity, right? Before we start dissecting the church identity and all of that, and the broader identity of the body of Christ, like, who are you? Are you happy with who you are? Do you know who you are? Do you know who you want to be? What are you doing to get there, right? Like, understanding that. And I know we're always on a point of journey of discovery, right? We're always going to grow and change and all of that. That's perfectly fine. But as part of that, once you are confident, I guess, or comfortable even with who you are, then making sure that identity matches up with the identity of the church that you're a part of, that you can do something and be a part of something and really get engaged in that place. And if the identity of the church doesn't match the identity of who you are, then there's going to be a struggle there. There's going to be a mismatch of some sorts. So I think that one of the first most important thing is identifying and making sure you understand who you are, and seeing how that fits into the identity of the church.
Yeah. Myself and Janice, we moved to Texas 6 months ago, and coming off of being on staff at one church, I had the plethora of phone calls, texts, like, hey, we have a place here for you, or hey, you can serve in this capacity. And I think it was almost 3.5 months, we just kept saying no, and we just said we need to pray about it. It might sound cliche. I'm gonna say it might sound cliche that we're saying pray about it, but we think that, hey, if we feel good about something, then we should go with it. But then we kept praying. We were consistent with, hey, not even serving wise or a place for us to be on staff, but really what is that church that I can identify with, say, hey, I can see potential in this church, And it comes down to your heart's posture, right? If, again, we're just going based off of what church feels good to me and not really knowing who you are, you'll always find that divide, or you'll find separation, or you'll find this disconnect, if you want to say it that way. But 3.5 months of just praying, God, like direct us to which church should be the church that we find home and family. That's what, when you start praying about it, things start to come into your vision. You start to see, like you said, leadership, how they lead the church. You see, even from a volunteer perspective, are they just doing it for the sake of doing it, or is their heart's posture behind serving the church on a much bigger scale? That's when you start to realize, hey, this is where we belong. And that's when you start getting that peace that you can say, hey, I can plant myself here, and this is the church and the leaders that I can get behind. And I've always said that even when we worked, I'm like, I mean, Pastor C would always like say, hey, what's your next step? You know, this year we're gonna transition to this role. It's like, no, man, like I'm here to serve you. And I felt like that was my calling to make sure that I'm here as, hey, whatever your vision, whatever God's put on your heart, I just want to get behind that, and I want to support and make sure that we can see this through. And again, it comes down to who you are, finding your identity in that space that you're trying to plug yourself into.
On a personal level, but now you just kind of touched on the ministerial level. He just kind of ended there of, hey, he knew his identity, his role in the context of serving on staff at a church. I've not been the lead pastor all my life. It's just been the past now 7 years. But I was youth pastor or associate pastor, whatever you want to call it. You're a youth pastor now, but you've always been in leadership. I think we all come from that experience of, hey, we've also been, a number 2 or a number 3, serving the vision of the lead pastor, the senior pastor. There have been moments, and you kind of touched on when I was at my church, my dad was the pastor. But God has given you a vision. How do you manage the tension of, hey, this is what I'm called to, but this is what I'm serving. Does it always line up? Does it always mesh perfectly? And when it doesn't, what do I do?
I think 2 parts to that. One, I've been lucky enough to serve under really good leadership, right? Individuals who understand what their vision is for the church. Is a very clear vision for the church, what God has put into their heart, and even more so what they want to do moving forward, and they have a plan in place. So not just, I want to reach the world, but here's a very specific tactical plan that we're going to put in place. And because of it, whenever I was in a capacity to serve, I knew what the end goal was. Like, this is what we're doing, this is what we're working towards. So it wasn't that I'm working towards this goal over here and the church's goal is over here on the other side. So that's number 1. Having good leadership is key. And I think a lot of churches flounder because that leadership is maybe not there or is not as strong. On the second part, no matter what vision God has given me, in this role that I'm in right now, my responsibility is to execute on the strategy and the plan and the vision that the church, that the senior pastor has, right? Because at the end of the day, he's the shepherd of a church. And until you understand that, respect it, fall in line, you're never going to get to where God wants you to be in life, right? If you can't be a good follower, you're never going to be a good leader, right? And having that mentality of like, in this stage of my life, my responsibility is to execute on that strategy, and that is what I'm going to do. And not just, let me go do my own strategy over here because I want to bring recognition to me. It doesn't mean that you won't have to develop your own plans, doesn't mean that you won't have to figure out some ideas and be creative and this and all of that. But at the end of the day, and I say this to my team at work, I'm like, at the end of the day, I expect you to do what you need to do, but make sure it fits into this broader strategy that we are all working towards. We're all rowing the same way, we're all going the same direction. Whatever I do here shouldn't be causing chaos and heart pain for the pastor or causing confusion in the church. It should be, we are all going aligned. And my pastor back in New York used to always say, I am your covering, right? In the church, I am your covering. So let me be able to protect you on whatever you're doing, because we're all on the same wavelength. We're all lockstep on what we need to do. If you're out here doing something on your own, I can't protect you because I don't know what it is.
You realize that hey, God was giving me something, but I'm here to serve that vision right now, right? If that doesn't help push the church forward together and united, if I'm causing strife and division in the process of trying to do my thing, then it's better to just, hey, walk away and do your thing. Right. Don't cause strife here and then do your thing. And I think that's where I've seen it too many times where like, maybe God has called people and God given visions to people in the church, and they just like, hey, they don't have the courage maybe to go do it on their own, so they have to cause some struggle, strife here, cause some little commotion, and then let that be the catalyst. Oh, time for church split.
I mean, yeah.
It's time for this. I have a call now, and
listen, if you're given a role and responsibility in church, first of all, consider it very important. Not just whether you are the lead pastor, associate pastor, youth pastor, Sunday school teacher, janitor, whatever it is, whatever you're called to do, consider it very important. Secondly, whatever it is, do it well or don't do it at all. Right? Like, don't complain about it. Don't, don't halfway it. Don't, gripe in every little thing that needs to get done. Do it. Do it really well. Execute on it. Spirit of excellence, right? Oh, I hate mediocrity. Right? I hate people.
That's why I like you.
Yeah, I hate when you do things, but they only do it halfway. It's like, do it well.
It's coming out.
Oh gosh. And when you do that, God will honor that. Yeah. Like, you know what? Because you were faithful in this, I will now open up these other things for you. Opposed to individuals who are like, I don't want to be faithful in this, but I still want God to open this up for me, and I will jump into it, and then you'll see what happens when you jump into something that you're not ready for.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, Georgie and Davis, all of us, but just speaking to you guys, like, you guys were faithful in the little, in the seen and the unseen roles in your original churches, your new churches, and I'm like, I just want to even speaking to both of you guys now, like, just be faithful now. I've told you both, like, whatever your role and capacity, titles you have now or don't have is just temporary. Even everything, even my role is temporary. Like, let's hold it with open hands. Like, I really don't want to retire as the pastor of one church. Right. I'm saying it openly here. I don't, because I feel like if I don't do a good job finding my successor and start now, there's no point in me doing any of this, right? Because the next generation's coming. I got to find someone that's going to connect with my kids' generation and maybe do better and more than I was able to do. But I think we have to come to that point of, hey, being content with what we have, being faithful, and hey, maybe God's going to open a youth pastor position in Atlanta. Did you ever dream of that? I don't know. Worship pastor in New York. Did you ever dream of that? I don't know. Lead pastor in New York. I dreamt of it, but it's happening. But is that the all in all and end? I don't know, right? So I think just you touched on being faithful, do it with excellence, and do it through the hard times as well, right? And just to come back a little bit, how can you encourage some pastors or even challenge some people to either take a courageous decision to, hey, if this is not the fit for you, ask the Lord and move forward and do what you got to do, or hey, if you're going to be here, you got to submit to the vision of the house, the spiritual leadership of the house. How do you encourage or challenge somebody like in that situation?
Yeah, Pastor Priscilla Schreier has a great quote that she says, when she prays, she says, Lord, do this or do something better. So she always says that. And when I used to hear that, I'm like, oh, that's actually a phenomenal quote. Like, I know there are times when we're praying for, like, God, I want you to do something here, do something here. And maybe God's like, your time here is done, or this is not where you need to be. You need to move on. So let God create the opportunity for something else to happen. But it takes courage to pray that prayer. Like, do this here, because it means you're going to go and do something better, but it's going to be outside of your comfort zone. Yeah. It's going to be out of your comfort zone, right? You physically maybe have to move. Maybe you have to relocate. You got to meet new friends, be in a new environment, learn a different language, interact with a different population group. But for God to do something better, it may require that, and you have to be okay with it. And I think that's the hard part. We want to be like, God, do something amazing, but keep it all my comfort zones still intact so that it doesn't change me too much.
There's something just like maybe a month ago, actually Janice shared it with me. She saw something online and said, whatever you're frustrated with within the church, that's usually your calling. And kind of backtracking a little bit, when you're frustrated and you run away, you're either going to hurt yourself or you're going to hurt somebody else. But if you find you're frustrated with something and that is what you want to see come to life, or
maybe you're passionate about that.
That's what you're probably passionate about. It's probably what God's like, hey, I'm giving you that burden. It's not a frustration.
Right.
But what we do humanly in our flesh is like, we gripe, we complain, we go, hey, and we start talking about it and making it a thing that isn't, when God's actually probably giving you a burden to serve in that capacity, whether it's a janitor, whether it's an executive pastor, youth pastor, Sunday school teacher, whatever it may be, the process of how church is happening. It could be whatever role it is. But I think when we start to look at things from a perspective of, hey, God's given you that burden to make that better. Stop looking at it as a frustration and, hey, I'm going to try to approach this differently and change the way I look at things or hear things or even say things, because that could break or make somebody, right? That could break or make the church.
And that, touching on something Pastor C said before, never hurt the church.
Yeah.
Right? Like because you're hurting the body of Christ at the end of the day. If you
it's his body.
It's his church, it's his body, right? It's not any of ours. It's not, we don't personally own it. It's not, right? No matter what, at the end of the day, it's the body of Christ. And if your intention is whatever you're doing is to cause pain or affliction to any one member, any one leader, it's going to come back and bite you, right? Let's be just call it what it is, right?
Too many testimonies of that.
Too many testimonies of that, right? People who have done things, caused problems, caused issues. They leave, and then later on, you see in their lives where it has come back to bite them. So if you are truly like, you know what, I am frustrated here. I don't think this is the right place for me. Go.
But also leave well.
Leave well. Leave peacefully.
Leave well.
Just
Can I just say that?
Just
leave well.
Leave well, and don't cause commotion.
Yeah.
I think we've all experienced, where churches have had difficulties and transitions and commotion happens, and honestly, it causes more issues than help resolve the problem.
I think
what is the right way to leave?
Before communion.
After testimony time.
Definitely after testimony time. We want to hear it.
Get the benediction and the blessing.
All right.
I've learned over the years, whatever God has given to us, whether it be the people, as a pastor, the people is the church, right? The responsibilities, the whatever. Hold it loose, hold it with an open hand. He gave it, he can take it.
Yep.
And when we hold it too tight, we put our identity in that versus our identity in Christ and our calling, because it goes beyond a geography, it goes beyond a zip code, it goes beyond a city, region, whatever. It goes beyond even the people. Like, some people are meant to be with you for a season and a reason, but some are meant to be with you maybe lifelong, and you got to be okay with both. And our testimony, I thought he was going to be with me for a lot longer than 6 years, but the Lord had different plans for you and for the church. And I believe that he's going to be blessed, their family's going to be blessed, but I also believe the church is going to be blessed, right? Because God used him, I'm just talking in our context, God used him to get things set up when the church needed to be set up, and to develop teams and people to where it is now. And now the next group of leaders are just building on the foundation that he set up. But he also built on the earlier foundations of what was already there. So we're grateful for the generations and the longevity of it. But we have to come to the realization, I want to talk to pastors, hey, hold people loosely. I want to talk to the congregation. Talk to your pastors when you want to go. If you force people to stay, it's probably not going to be healthy, especially if they're called to go.
Maybe holding back from their calling.
You may be holding back from their calling, and you may be holding them back from the church's blessing. Because I've learned, I used to work for Pastor Steve Malazzo in New York at an AG church. And he taught me something. I watched this church grow over and over, but every time there would be an opportunity to plant a church or help another church that was in the city, he would release dozens of people at a time. I'm like, what's wrong with you? In my head, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, those are good, faithful, strong, giving people, serving people, committed people. Why are you letting them go? And he told me, listen, if I send off 50 people, God will give, his testimony is God was always giving back 75 or 100 more. It's like, it's almost like seed. Plant the seed, release and bless Georgie, and you'll get 5 more Georgies, right? Maybe better Georgies, but you know. But
I hope they're better. Let me say that. I hope they're doing better.
Good save. God, he was a seed. Plant those lives as seeds. Church folks, talk to your pastors and your leaders. If you don't want to talk to your senior pastor, because I've learned being a senior pastor, you know, sometimes builds up some imaginary walls and fears and intimidation. Those are words I've heard, and we're not going to hold anybody. Like, I don't know if your pastor will, or I don't know if yours will, but I think we just want to see people blessed. At least most do, right? And I want to challenge the pastors, bless and release your people. And if you sense something even before it gets to the end, have the conversations earlier on. But even to the congregation, I would just say, hey, talk to your leaders. If not your senior pastors, talk to the ones that you can talk to, and let the leadership have those conversations, give you an opportunity to pray, bless you, and release you. But what I see in our community growing up is there's always some problem, some commotion, some strife, and then there's always a separation in an unhealthy way. Then you see on the larger scales, the church splits. You know, I don't know if you've gone through church, lived through a church.
We all have.
We all have. Okay, good. So we all have an observation, personal leadership observation. It always comes around something connected to a building.
That's some sort of expansion.
Some sort of expansion, some building project. But you see that it always, that's a common denominator there.
It's a moment of growth, whether it be the church is growing, a new building, we need to do renovation, whatever it is, there's some sort of moment of growth. And it's usually around that time where everyone has an idea, and it's perfectly fine to be a part of a church and have ideas. Share those ideas with the pastor. But at the end of the day, or with the leadership team, at the end of the day, all of that needs to gel into the common goal, right?
Yeah.
The common vision. It can't be we're gonna do these 5 or 10 things. It has to be we're all working towards this one thing.
Yep. Want to add anything to that?
No, I think you said that perfectly.
Yep. So to our generation of pastors and leaders, I want to just encourage everyone, hey, don't put yourself in that situation. Have clear guidance from the Lord first before. And listen, there's a spiritual component to this. This is a church that God is building, and the enemy is also aware that God is raising up a church. He's going to come to attack it in different forms and fashions. So we have to be spiritually alert, prayerfully fervent, and on guard in a way to pray against and protect the church against those kind of attacks.
One thing interesting enough, our parents, for many of us, our parents came to this country, and whether they be in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and right, or all around a certain time frame, sort of their peak of their life, right? They came and they were in survival mode, right? Like, we need to come, we need to survive, we need to help our families grow, thrive, build a spiritual community. Right, and they made that commitment for the churches that we see today. Many of them came out of our parents' generation wanting to see something and willing to plant, sacrifice, grind it out, build it. And now we are having the benefit of that because we're reaping the benefits, we're reaping the fruits of that foundation that was poured. What we fail to realize is that as the next large scale of growth happens, it's our responsibility now, right? Yeah. We can't look to our parents and be like, hey, can you help build or grow or expand? It's now our responsibility. Yes. And oftentimes I see this in our generation, them not wanting to do it because it requires work, right? And
sacrifice.
And it requires work and sacrifice. And it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that, or if I want to be committed to it. I don't know if I want to give to that program, that plan, this expansion. I don't know if I want to go to this, go to this area and do this, because they're so comfortable where they are. And the thing I always think about is if our parents were willing to do it, and because they did it, this is where we are. If we're willing to do it now, we will see the benefit in our children and our children's children, right? The generations that come before.
And that's the benefit of even coming back to the topic of Stronger Together. I think our heart for this year, especially with the conference that we get to serve and lead, is the theme is Stronger Together, but the heart that what God put in my heart was, hey, multi-generational. We got to be able to serve and minister and worship alongside all our generations together. You know, it could be language-based. Maybe you don't understand the language, but last year in the conference in Charlotte, I saw young people enjoying worship in the combined session, and it was in their native language of Malayalam. Yeah. And I was standing around like, what's going on here? And then I was like, it could work. It could, and young people were leading those sessions of worship. And but we also have to, hey, this is what works, but this doesn't work. Coming back to pastors, recently we had the privilege to meet with almost 30 pastors at our pastor summit. It was the first for our conference and our movement, and
I think first across the board in any of our churches.
I think so, and it was a wonderful experience. 2 days, basically. A great time of fellowship. Some of the spouses reached out to us. How can we invite us? I said, don't worry, we'll figure something out. We wanted to make the mistakes with this group, so we don't make it with you. So we're dreaming for the future. But like, what was the takeaway for you from that pastor summit, just from hearing the feedback or being in the moment?
Yeah, so sort of two things that sort of stood out. One, pastors are people. Or at the end of the day, these are individuals who also need to be poured into, right? Like they are constantly pouring out and serving and ministering and giving 120%. And at the end of the day, they come home, they are individuals as well. And it was interesting to see Sunday afternoon, we started Sunday evening. So by Sunday evening, when we were sitting for dinner, and the camaraderie between the pastors of just, they knew they were amongst themselves, amongst friends, amongst peers. No one was going to judge them. No one was going to ask them a question. They were just able to have conversation, pour out their heart, share concerns. And even afterwards, after dinner was over and had a few conversations, we went to the hotel. They were still talking.
Yes.
Right? They were hanging out in each other. It was like
they called it a mini NACOG.
They were mini NACOG, right? Like they're hanging out in each other in the hallways.
Someone said it was better than NACOG because there was no people there.
Right.
I'm just joking.
They didn't have to minister, right?
Yeah.
Like they really were able to be relaxed and just honestly have a conversation with each other, and just once again, it seemed like a bunch of college friends got together.
Yes.
Right. And so that was number one.
Sharing
right?
war stories.
Sharing war stories and pain points and celebrations and all of that. So that's the first part. They're people who also need to be poured into. And number two, that they still also have dynamic vision for what the future is, right? Even though they've been in this role and for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, they still are hungry to see the body of Christ grow, right? Like they were still passionate about like, oh yeah, we can do that and this can happen and that can happen and we want to do this in our church. Or are you doing that? Right? That fire is still there. We may not see it because we day in and day out and we go and see them in the same light. But in actuality, God still has set a fire in their heart to do some greater things. So it was amazing to see that sort of come to light.
Yeah. For me, there was a moment, one of the pastors said, it kind of almost broke my heart. At the same time was almost a thank you, God, for giving us the opportunity to do this for them. One of the pastors said, thank you, Pastor C. Thank you. It was just good to have a break for 1 week. I was like, what do you mean? Like I didn't have to preach or I didn't have to do anything. I got to travel and come here and rest. And personally speaking, he knows like I'm blessed. And maybe I don't value it as much as I have over the recent years. I could walk away from my church for a week, like I am this weekend, and like not have to worry about what's going on. The team is great. The people are great. And whether I'm traveling or not, I can just step away from the pulpit and just sit and receive from somebody else in the church or a guest that we invite. But I was like, man, a lot of others don't get that opportunity. And pastors are people, but I think our churches need to invest in our pastors and set them apart, especially for times of refreshing. I just say, hey, no ministry, you and your family, go away. Invest financially, invest in calendar, invest in time. It could be small things. It doesn't have to be big things. You don't have to send them to the 5-star Ritz-Carlton, But for one pastor to say that for just leaving for a day and a half, and one of the pastors said, "Hey man, if I knew I was getting my own hotel room, I would have brought my wife." What's going on here?
Hey, do what you gotta do.
More NACOG attendees.
Don't wait for church.
Yeah. But even them to have their own hotel room, they thought they were going to like do bunk style in a cabin or something. But I was like, but thanks to the people that gave and all those. But it's just, hey, they're people. Churches need to invest in their pastors and in their pastoral families as well. So we're grateful for that. And it kind of brings us to this, wrapping up this conversation. I know we hit a lot in this. Thank you, Georgie. Thank you, Davis. We're coming up we're just a couple of months away from this conference coming up in July in New York, our Stronger Together, and also the Legacy Conference. And it's about generations coming together. And we're hoping to meet in New York, on Long Island, in the middle of July 10th through 13th. What is your prayer for that weekend?
Primarily that people come and walk away refreshed.
Yeah.
That yes, they're spiritually fed, they are emotionally fed because they got to connect and with some old friends, make some new friends, build some new relationships, new connections. I remember growing up, I love going to conferences because I've made some of my lifelong friends are from conferences that I went to, so that those connections happen and people don't feel like, oh, I came for 4 days and all I heard was a bunch of messages, which is perfectly fine messages.
Yeah.
But you want to be able to build something like, the personal
So what do we do? We're building a lot more free time this year?
Yes, there is a lot of more free time.
Okay.
There's a lot more times for not only to be spiritually fed, but also
relationally,
right? Like building emotions, but also like intellectually and making sure the family unit is taken care of, whether it be talking about finances, talking about work-life balance, talking about mental health. There's all of these various segments, taking care of the children's and their children's programs, that's custom, right? Making sure there are things that serve all the various age groups and all the various populations.
Life stages
of their life. Whether you are a newlywed who just starting off to someone who is hitting retirement. How can we serve you through this conference? So I think all the various programs are going to be really helpful, really strategic, and I feel that people will be able to walk away and say, I'm so glad I came and invested in these 4 days for myself and my family. Like, it was worth it.
And then that's been our conversations as a team as well. Just like, hey, this is a financial commitment. It's a time commitment. We got to be able to walk away and say, hey, I got something tangible, but spiritual. I could walk away with a new friendship, a lifelong relationship. Or my prayer is there are some individuals or families that really have the call of God that's on them revived or refreshed, and maybe even identified for the first time. I would love to see some young people set apart for ministry, fully realize, have a revelation of their calling in some of those sessions. This year we're doing something different. We're actually going out into the community that the hotel is nearby, and we're going to do some outreach. I don't think that's ever been done before. So we really want to just maybe be a catalyst for someone's trajectory in their ministry life and story. So that's our prayer.
Hey, you might meet your life spouse, future spouse at a conference also. It's a great place.
Possible.
I'm telling you, listen, come to these events. Is where you can meet people.
I think Friday Night Live, there's a little...
We don't know. You never know. I'm just saying, keep your options open when you come to conference.
Yes. Georgie, anything you would like to share as we wrap up, just to close up?
Actually, one thing. I think pastors and leaders trust your church.
Yeah.
I say that from a place of going back to exiting or the mass exodus of the young adults, that generation of folks leaving the church. I think it comes from a lot of trust issues. And I think either they don't trust their leaders or pastors, or vice versa. The pastor leaders don't trust them because they see a different perspective. But you said something very important. Pastors are people.
Yeah.
People are people.
Yes.
And we're all coming together to feed and shepherd the lost, the broken, the hurting.
Yes.
And if we start to see each other just as much as the leaders, pastors, ministers, servant leaders, whatever it is, as the same as those who are attending, and we're really coming together, no pun intended, stronger together.
Yeah.
I think we will really start to see God's vision come to life within us and within the church, and even outside the four walls of the church.
Well, thank you. I think that there's no better way to close than that. Thank you, Davis. Thank you, Georgie. And it's been a pleasure to connect with you guys. It's been a blast. Hope we can do this again. But there's so much more. Thank you all for joining here today. And stay tuned for the next episode as well. We want to invite all of you that's watching here on different platforms. We love for all of you, from young families to elders, pastors and leaders. We are going to do our best to make sure that you have a refreshing time, like you heard, but also a time to walk away saying, hey, that was worth it. Those 4 days was worth it. My life will never be the same. And I pray that there are testimonies that come out of that weekend. So please go to NACOGconference.com, register. If you are blessed and God is putting a leading on your heart to even invest financially, we want to invite you to partner with us, because all this takes finances. So if you're able to do that, please invest. All the methods to give are on the website. Register. Rooms are running out, by the way. So please register quickly, secure your room. If you need food packages are there. If not, there are plenty of great restaurants there. And enjoy the time in New York. Listen, it's New York. There's no greater city, not even Dallas or Atlanta is as great as New York City. Okay, so please come to New York, enjoy New York City, enjoy the pizza, the real bagels, real pizza, real food, and have a great time with your family. Enjoy the beaches too of Long Island and have a great time there. Come before, stay after, but make sure you come 4 days, July 10th through 13th this year, and we can't wait to see you. We love you guys. We are stronger together.